Keanu's doing like groups of 6 for photo ops, and I was like, with people you don't even know, I'm like, wow, that's kind of nerdy. Who's gonna put that on? I don't know who this guy is and that girl in my photo with Keanu. So Keanu was an hour and 10 minutes late to perform. I've done some things, but there's half of the people in my network have done way more rad things. They're way more accomplished with their military service, but it's not about that. Because some people, like a Goggins, people give him shit because he's only done one deployment. I'm like, maybe he didn't get the fucking chance to do it, guys. Like, he's not out there saying he's the baddest motherfucker, like Navy SEAL, most accredited,
Right.
killer, whatever, that thing is. He's just trying to inspire people. And if you compare yourself to others, man, you never get help. So when I heard him tell me the story, what it did for me, it had a massive impact because he was in the unit, something that I never did. And I'm like, okay, it's okay for me to get help, dude, because this guy's done it, and he's way more accomplished in the military circles than I ever had been. And so it just led me the opposite direction to actually, not be afraid to reach out to other organizations to get help for myself. Because I always thought I'm going to take that from someone else. If I get help, somebody who's done more, like I've got 2 veterans on staff that are amputees. One's a double amputee, one's a single amputee, broken backs, blind in one eye. Just wild stories, man. And I'm like, they look at me like I'm some kind of like stud, because you did this and you were in this group and you did these amount of deployments. But I'm like, dude, you might have only done one deployment, lose both legs. You didn't have the opportunity to go to do other things in life in that career field.
Let me ask you a question real quick. Alessi, maybe you can help me out here. Can you Google what percentage of the current U.S. population served or has served in the military?
5 million. That's what I'm going to go.
You're going to guess 5 million?
It's probably, it's such a small percentage,
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's something like, it's under 5 million.
I want to see what this is.
Are you talking about veterans?
Yeah, just in general. Any war, any era, who's currently alive. That's all I want to know. Are we getting anything?
Yeah.
What do we got?
The share of the U.S. population with military experience has declined. In 1980, about 18% of U.S. adults were veterans, but all that share fell to 6% in 2022.
All right, so that's perfect
ish.
to make my point. So it's 5 or 6%.
And this 350 million people ish, somewhere around there. It's under 400 million, I think.
So this is where a civilian like me who hasn't served should be making this point more to guys like you and all the people who are within that community. The comparison that you speak of and the little like, oh, he did this or I didn't do that or maybe I shouldn't talk because he did this and I'm that. You guys are such a small percentage of society that in today's times, since, after Vietnam, elected to go do that and serve the country, not knowing where you were going to go, what you were going to have to see, what you were going to have to do. Obviously, there's some people who are insanely great warriors that kind of are the best of the best, but still, every person in there has done something that, like, I never did, Alessi never did, most people never did, to serve the country and protect the freedoms we have. And so I say this because when I see the military internally from the outside, when I see them having their little battles about, well, you didn't do this or you didn't do that, it kind of breaks my heart to see it because it's like you guys have such a special thing and such a special bond that brings you all together, and you shouldn't be more worried about who saw, how many legs fly off from an IED versus the other guy who didn't. It's a very and I'll use this word. It's ridiculous in some cases, and I've seen it. By the way, on a personal note, like I've seen the dark side of the military eating their own with my friend with my friend Joe Tedeye. What they put Joe Tedeye through for 8 years with no facts whatsoever was horrible.
They shouldn't do that, man.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't look, man. That's the point. When I do this, I don't like doing media just in general. I started doing it because I have to get the word out for Brothers Keeper Veterans Foundation, all the good we're doing, we're uniting communities. But I see it within our own community. Not only that, but I see that firsthand. And I'll give you a good example. Like I have this awesome dude so when people order merch offline, the guy that fulfills the order is my friend Dave. I hope he doesn't get upset with me for. I just love the guy. He's one of the nicest people I've met, and I just stumbled on him. I talked to a local military group. I said, "Hey, man." They had me speak to everybody, and these are all retired sergeant majors. People. Some of our career, but there's about only 30 people there. And they had this book with 4 veterans in it. And I said, look, I'm running a nonprofit to help veterans that are struggling. And the way people can help today is just help us fund the organization this year. So when I can go to the biggest platforms that I can get in front of, I want to be very careful in my messaging because I don't want to break the machine. This year is it's our 3rd year in business. Next year, I want to be able to go on a platform and say, if you're a veteran, you come to BKVF. BKVF.org, just Google it, write help at. We got you from there. If you're strong enough to do that, we got you. But, with Dave's situation, this book had 4 people. One already committed suicide. I said, dude, I need to call these guys. They all live local to me. I want to be more involved in the local community. Previously, I've been a bit of a hermit. I didn't leave my house. I had a lot of social issues. I'd go to the gym, go to the grocery store, go to work, and then I'd come home. I didn't want to be around people whatsoever. And now that I'm coming outside of that with this, this amazing thing to kind of do good work, I bumped one of the 4 dudes was this guy. So I met him, talked to him. I said, bro, he goes, yeah, I played, he was 6'8". He's a white dude, I only say that because, you look at the NBA, a lot of tall dudes, whatever. I'm not trying to freaking stereotype. Don't freaking troll me for everything, man.
No one would have until
Yeah,
you said
okay.
that.
I know now I'm just freaking highlighting it. But he's 6'8", 240 in high school, dude, right? So he plays college football, college basketball. He's like, I wasn't a very good athlete. Plays for the Redskins for 2 years. Walked on.
Yeah.
I was like, well, you're a pretty good athlete. I was a really good athlete growing up, but I could never play college football, bro. For a lot of reasons, let alone the Redskins. He was like, well, they weren't very good at the time. Very self-deprecating. And it's part of one of the things, right? So I'm like, well, that's pretty rad. And then in 1993, he joins the military shortly after. Goes from Germany, he goes into Kuwait, push up. He was in satellite communications. He's like, I wasn't really in the military. I'm like, you have no legs. You're in the club forever, bro. I put these guys on a pedestal. Yeah. And then they try to do that with me. And they're like, well, you were in, Special Forces, you were a Green Beret, and you went on to work for the OGA and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, who cares, man? Like, it's not about that. I'm like, so I said, what, so I met him, took him to meet Keanu Reeves. I was kind of telling you before the podcast. Like,
this is the guy that met Keanu.
Yeah. So this was this year,
awesome.
a couple months ago. Well, we'll talk about that. So I said, well, dude, so I didn't know his complete story. He's in a wheelchair, right? He's a double amputee above the knee. And everything he does, because I can appreciate it, and almost losing my leg at the pelvis, like up, basically at the pelvis 3 times between MRSA, bone degradation, everything else. I was like, I can barely put my socks on myself sometimes, man. I'm in a lot of, my things don't work. So we're doing a meet and greet. My buddy's pulling security for Keanu. He was playing with Dog Star in Atlanta. It was a couple months ago. So I said, hey, man, I'd really like to take this guy. I mentioned it to him that I was going to do a meet and greet for a couple veterans. I only took him and my stepson, and because he happened to be home. And, he knew who John Wick was, right? I was like, finally, I'm not that old where you don't know. Like, I'm dropping like, hey, do you know who Humphrey Bogart is? Like, who? But so we drive down there. It was the first time I ever drove with a double amputee. I was terrified because I've driven with single amputees before, but he's basically had 2.
He's driving.
Dude, he's driving me in the car down to Atlanta from where I live. It's about an hour drive through traffic, dude. If you've ever been to Atlanta, close to the city, traffic's insane. Like when I was coming here, I was almost late because
he's driving with broomsticks.
Bro, basically, the way I explain it is 2 broomsticks, one on gas, one on, and I'm like, man, you need to get a Tesla, son. Like, so he's like throttling, and I'm like, wow, this is wild, man. The things he has to do. I think amputees, don't quote me on this, but it's around 60% more energy is expended just doing normal everyday shit. Sure. Yeah. It's exhausting, dude. Yeah. And like you drop a pen, you can't pick it up. And I appreciate all those things. And that's why I want to help people, right? So I'm like, he He goes, man, I'd love to get some stuff. He has 3 kids, 3 young ones. He's got 2 kids in the military that are older. And we're driving down there. And I didn't know his complete story. I still don't know the whole story because I don't want to pick a scab. So we're driving down there. My buddy, Keanu's doing like groups of 6 for photo ops. And I was like, with people you don't even know, I'm like, wow, that's kind of nerdy. Who's going to put that on? I don't know who this guy is and that girl in my photo with Keanu. So Keanu was an hour and 10 minutes late to perform, right? He's behind schedule. And I heard really good things. I've Google searched them. I don't give a shit about a celebrity. I'll never build an event around the celebrities because they're flaky, a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're people that I think really care, hell yeah, I got time for that. I'd love to get them behind our organization to bring eyeballs, like everybody. John Wick, I know there's some people that didn't like the last one, whatever. I get it.
Bro.
Dude, he's fucking a really cool guy. And if you ever Google him, he has a really crazy story. He's been through a lot of tragedy himself. He's a good motherfucker is what I heard. So we're up there. He's like, man, I'd really like to get some stuff for my kids, sign for it. So he makes a hat, I gave him a little grief over it because he has an embroidery business. So it was a good alignment for us to do our merch. And he lives 20 minutes from me. And he loves being part of the company, And he's like, I feel like I'm on the team. I'm like, you are, motherfucker. You're on the team. You are fucking on the team. I love this guy. So everybody's done. My buddy's like, hey, he's behind. He's about an hour and 10, behind. But, I said, can you bring him to us? He's in a chair, man. We're up in the stadium at the concert. And nobody was there yet. So it was one-on-one. And Keanu comes up with the people from Dog Star. And I said, Dave, I got to ask you, man. I got to, what happened in 93, dude? Can you give me like a little bit more specifics? He's like, yeah, I was the sole survivor of an IED attempt in 1993 in North Iraq. We're put in satellite dishes. We got hit and I lost both legs below the knee at the time. One was just hanging on by threads. The other one was gone. I was like, how the hell did you live back then? Because we didn't have TCCC like with tourniquets and things. The training that we now have is so advanced, even for dumb people like me. I'm like, I can throw a tourniquet on and plug holes.
They didn't have any of that?
Not as advanced as 2003 through 2020. It just kept,
because it was happening all the time.
That's why we had so many people lost in like Vietnam that could have lived.
Yeah.
They couldn't get the people quick enough. They didn't have the life-saving technology and training. So he's like, yeah, man. So people threw, tourniquets on, belt, basically whatever they could do. I was like, you're so lucky to be here, bro. So I tell Keanu. Keanu comes over. He makes him a hat. And he put Keanu on the back. That's what I gave him shit on. I'm like, dude, first of all, he's famous as fuck. Number one. And number 2, he knows his name. Like, I was like, dude, that's so great. So, dude, he kind of, like, Keanu teared up, dude. Like, he spent about 40 minutes with us and was not rushing. Like, had most celebrities that are a lot of, I'll say more, the majority are going to be like, hey, dude, I got to go, because they get annoyed, it's annoying, dude, to have people coming after you and want autographs and like, they got a life too, man. Like, leave them the fuck alone. And that's why when they come to our event, they like working with special operations because we just let them, if they come to a shooting event, for instance, it's like they get treated like a normal person.
Yeah.
It's like hey, if you guys want to do photos, we'll do it at the end. Just leave them alone. Let them have fucking fun and be a human being. Mm-hmm. So super fucking good dude. Confirmed how awesome that guy was. And he took a bunch of photos and signed everything. And,
I've heard amazing things.
Super
about
guy.
him.
And Dave's just a super exceptional guy. Then he goes on to start a satellite communication company in Nashville, sells it for tens of millions of dollars, walks away with large sums, multi-million dollars, right? He spends it all trying to walk again. They made him 6'8". He fell off of it, his prosthetics in a bathroom. He got MRSA like I did. And luckily for me, I knew what it looked like from doing jiu-jitsu. That's the only reason I have this leg. I was one day from complete amputee.
Yeah.
And so I really identify with these guys, even though I'm not an amputee and I didn't have this happen in combat, to be clear.
I mean, you have like
I got titanium.
Yeah,
like,
full titanium. Yeah. Pretty close.
It looks like a dildo on one side and a knife on the other. I usually just say the knife, but then everyone's like, it kind of looks like a dildo, like in your hip joint. But that was a really cool like event where, that's what I'm talking about is like, I only want to I live in this world of just, we're talking about geopolitics and all the things that are, I'm like, if I can grow the sphere of control, like, or sphere of influence, and unite the left, the right, gay, straight, transgender, all branches. We serve all branches, men and women. And I wanted to be clear because we have 4 special operations guys on our board of directors out of 5. We're all veterans.
Wow. Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.